Test 1 2 1 2 2 1 2.
Is it on mute? Right?
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to The Soundman Stole Our Gear and other crazy gig stories. I'm Josh, and I'm here tonight with Bryan of Ho Hum and other bands, of course. But we're going to tell some crazy band stories, and we hope you get a kick out of them. We hope that the parties involved aren't too mad when they hear the stories about themselves, and hopefully Rod will remember to either use fake names or just leave out the names altogether so nobody gets all butthurt, as musicians tend to do.
Can happen.
Can happen. Okay, so I want to start the episode with a little short story of my own, and then you can just tell us everything all night. So,
I'm already terrified.
So when I was in high school, I think I was about 16, my first trip to Vino's, which was the only club in town that was all ages. It was actually all ages shows of all sorts of types. And some friends of mine said, hey, I'm going to pick you up. We're going to go to Vino's. Great. I hadn't been there yet. I was dying to check the place out. And I was a very late comer. Let me state that. I was very late to the scene. I missed the whole Towncraft era completely. I don't know what I was doing. I was probably just like watching horror movies on VHS and just missed all of it. But anyway, finally, so get picked up. There's three of us. I'll leave the names out. We get to Vino's. We pay $5. We get in. Ho Hum is on stage. Now, this first live band I've seen, I'm blown away. You guys were great at that point. Really good, solid lineup. Kevin Kirby was in the band. And this is when you guys were playing like every week.
Yeah.
2 times a week.
Yeah.
So that'll make any band really tight.
Yeah.
So we get there. There's no place to sit except the very front. Now, this was a rare show where there wasn't a sea of people at the front. I think it was a Wednesday.
It wasn't. We didn't have that many at the very start.
It wasn't a mosh type crowd, but it was packed. So only table right at the front. Not ideal for us, but we go and we sit down. We're there approximately 10 minutes. And the guy who initiated the whole thing, I think maybe even drove, said, I didn't realize what time it was. I've got to go. I'll have to be home in 15 minutes or my parents are going to kill me, whatever. We have to go. We just paid $5. I'll pay you the $5 back. We have to go right now. Fine. We get up. We get about halfway down the aisle back to just leaving the place. And you guys finish a song right at that point. Worst timing. And one of you, either you or your brother, because I don't know. I heard it, I didn't see it. Said something to the effect of, "We didn't want you at our show anyway," which was met by other people joining in. It was absolutely the worst first live show experience that I could have had.
That's terrible.
But I did manage to. I vowed, okay, well, that's it. I'm gonna go by myself. and I'll stay, and nobody's going to make me leave. And that way, if I'm by myself, maybe no one will remember me. They'll be looking for those 3 guys who got up and walked out, not just one guy. So
you're sure this was either me or my brother? No chance of it being the drummer or the guitar player.
It was definitely not the guitar player. It was most likely your brother. He would have been standing right at the mic, right when the song ended, and he probably would have noticed a little more.
I think if I had to guess, I'd say it's probably least likely to be him.
Really? Okay.
Most likely to be either me or the drummer.
Oh, okay.
And maybe if Kevin said it, it would have been a big joke.
That's
But Dave or I would have been like trying to start a fight.
I hadn't even considered it being Dave, the drummer, and you're right. It very well might have been Dave.
I would say I would bet on either Dave or me.
Okay.
And
then Lenny's off the hook.
And I would like to apologize.
No, listen. Whoever it was, what they said was totally justified. Even if they had said something even worse. Totally justified. We deserved it. It was, it was very apparent to whoever it looked to anyone on the outside. Like we came in, sat down, we were like, "Well, this band sucks. Let's go," and we got up and left. Yeah. And I can't blame anyone who was there for thinking that. So, yeah. But okay, so let's talk Ho Hum. Now at that point, that was, that was 93, something like that. By about a year and a half later, you guys took off. Now before that, let's start before, because you guys got signed to the brand new Universal Records, which was very cool sounding at the time. That was a big deal. It was
nice
like
logo.
Universal has a label, a music label, really, and so that was pretty good. It was recognizable, great logo.
Yeah.
So before all of that shot you into the crazier weirdness, let's talk just regular old dive bar local gigs.
Oh boy, yeah.
Because you guys had, for just to set this up, you and your brother are essentially the brainchilds of the band, and then there was just kind of a revolving door of other musicians. Now, to be fair to those musicians, they were all really good. It was all really good musicians, but it was a revolving. So just the two of you, just to give people a dynamic that this is kind of the two brother-led band. So, all right. So give us what have you got?
We were always trying to get better and play, but we were also writing a lot of songs. We wrote a ton of songs that never really got released on any album during that time. But we played way too much. But we didn't really care so much as to, we were just learning our craft, kind of. And we would play cover. If we get bored, we'd play cover songs. So it was just always a process of seeing if we could entertain the people who were there. And it kind of became a game. It's like, well, we're going to play this much. We're just going to have new songs every time we play. So we kind of became a song production machine. I mean, I bet you we pumped out 200-300 songs during that time.
Very Guided by Voices style. Just can't stop the songwriting. Now, were you writing songs as well as your brother? Or was he really the?
It was him during that point. I mean, when we first started, I had a few, and then he just hit with like an ocean of songs, and I couldn't. It was so much.
Keep up.
I was so much trying to keep up with his, I couldn't really write them anymore. So I ended up kind of not. I started writing some more back in after we did the big tour and everything, just to kind of process it all. I did the whole sitting in my room with the 4-track, made a couple of records, and didn't really, gave a couple tapes around, and that was pretty much all I did. And so some of that stuff's on. I have a Bandcamp page, and some of that stuff's on there. So.
Well, okay, so before everything went to Universal. Any good? Did quitting the band? You clearly had people that were either quitting or getting fired. Any good blow-ups with those guys?
Well, our first drummer, he was in high school, and we were in college. We were college athletes, and we play in the summer. And at Vino's in particular, we had a show.
That's the only place he could get in.
Yeah. Well, we used to play the Antenna over in Memphis. And
sure.
There's some story, and I'm friends with him online and stuff. So I could tell some stuff on him, but I'm not.
You don't have to mention his name.
I'm not going to do it, but he he was in high school, and he's a great drummer. I listened back to those early records with him playing, and he had really good energy. But he was, Lenny and I were starting to move like into the Minutemen and the Replacements, and he was still in high school. He was like headbanging. He wanted to be like Metallica, and he was moving more and more towards that. And we were, not really going in that direction. And but we'd started playing with Dave Hoffpower, and I think I might have even been living at his house at the time.
So you were cheating on him?
I was cheating on him, yeah, with Dave.
Cheating on him with another drummer.
And, and me and Dave and Kevin made Mulehead, which was kind of at the same time. And we were doing that, and then Kevin just kind of came into Ho Hum after that. And then, but one night, our original drummer, we had the gig, and he just, he said, I'm not. He called, and he was like still in our hometown. We're like, we're here, man. It's time to play. And he's like, I can't make it. And so we called Dave, and Dave had never, he'd never played Ho Hum songs with us. He just played the Mulehead songs with me, and he sat in, and we played a gig, and we're like, oh, this guy's great, And
why go back?
Yeah, and he stayed. Yeah, we never went back. So.
Well, that's the best. That's the best way. If you have a little drummer on the side, little side piece drummer, and then in case of emergency, there you go.
Yeah, and then that happened. I guess all the Ho Hum records we made, there's 4 drummers. There's Alan McCalman, drummer number 1, Dave Hoffpower, drummer number 2, Colin Brooks, number 3, and Brad Brown, number 4. And I guess the most traumatic change was from Colin to Brad.
I was gonna say those 2 of my favorite local drummers, and honestly, Colin's just one of my favorite drummers all around. But those 2 guys, their drumming styles couldn't be different.
Yeah. And there's no way to also hold a grudge against anybody quitting a band in Arkansas, trying to play shows in Mississippi and Texas and Louisiana and try to hold down a job and be a professional musician. It's impossible. It's impossible.
It really is.
Yeah. And it's like, and when they quit, we were just like, But now, as I'm older, I'm like, oh my God. And then having to put up with me and my brother anytime you're with 2 brothers on tour, there's this unspoken communication between the brothers that nobody else is ever going to get into.
Yeah, I feel like for the other band members, it would be like us versus them kind of thing. They'd never be part of that.
Yeah, and he and I would sometimes fight with each other, mainly because we were trying to communicate something to one of them. Like the drummer's not getting it at all, and he and I get in a fight, and it's really the drummer's fault. But yeah, we channeled it through just the brother aggression thing. So.
Biggest fight that ever happened? Did it ever come to blows?
Oh yeah.
You say that? Oh yeah, all the time.
So it's amazing how I was thinking I probably won't remember these stories, but as soon as you said that, there was a Taco Bell and I think it was in Oxford, Mississippi, and it seems like we ate at Taco Bell all the time because that's
that's what touring bands eat.
It's like here's $1 for you, $1 for you. Get a bean burrito and tell them you want water, but then fake a Coke.
Of course.
But we the furniture in the Taco Bells was bolted to the floor.
Right.
And Lenny and I got into I think the fight was where we're going to, one of us wanted to eat at Wendy's or something instead of Taco Bell. And we somehow got into this shoving match in a Taco Bell and dislodged one of those bolted down. We're big guys and we were pretty strong back then too.
But those are heavily bolted down.
Yeah,
those are made for fast food eaters.
It was either something broke on one of them or something, or one of them, maybe it wasn't bolted down and it moved and they were about to call the police, and then somebody said to the person working at the time, they're like, they're brothers. And they're like, oh. So they, but then
they understood they had a brother. They're like, oh, okay. Well, then they're not really mad. No one's going to stab him, but they'll get over it in a minute.
Yeah. And then there was some, I can tell that one because that's me and my brother, and there usually weren't fights between the other bandmates but there was a lot of tension. And there were some, like, we're going to leave you at this truck stop. If, I know we're in North Dakota, but, if something doesn't happen, we're going to leave you here. And I think that got told to me a few times too. It's like, look, we can't deal with you anymore, That
was the regular thing, the regular threat.
Yeah. And I used to wander off Sometime I remember once we were in Minnesota somewhere, and we played a show in Minneapolis, and we drove into Wisconsin, and Jason White was with us for some reason, and he had slept on top of the van, and we slept on picnic tables in like a roadside park or something.
Wherever you can.
Oh, it was awful. And I woke up and I just started walking, and I ended up in some little fishing village. We didn't have cell phones. I have no idea how they found me but I remember I was just like, man, I'm out of here. And I walked along, and I came back much later thinking they'd probably be gone and had left me, and they were all still dead asleep in the park, around lunch. Okay,
so much for that.
Time to go. Yeah. So.
Well, that was perfect. You blew off steam, and then all right, let's go. Yeah. All right, so you guys, kind of hometown heroes a little bit. Aside from, I think Mother's Day Out may have beaten you guys to kind of like to get onto MTV. We're hoping to get Jeff Morgan from Mother's Day Out to come in.
That'd be cool.
He's recording every Sunday, apparently. Jeff, if you're watching, we'll just let me know. We'll get you in on some other day. Mother's Day Out. I remember that was a big deal. Well, I guess the Gun Bunnies really. Yeah,
they were on Virgin.
They were on Virgin, Records, so they really beat. But then you guys, it was really impressive because one, it was Universal Records. It was kind of I guess it wasn't a new record label, but it was a label that hadn't put out any records in.
It was basically MCA had kind of become known as a graveyard of the record industry, so it was pretty much a rebranding with new people. Like they took the guy Doug Mars from Atlantic came in, and he started running that label, and they kind of brought in an all-star cast of people from all these other labels, and it was just. It sounded like it would be great, but it was not the best strategy.
As an outsider, especially as like a musician, we were hearing things like, and you can confirm or deny, and I'm trying to remember as best I can. Now they flew you guys to England to record it?
Well, we recorded it in Muscle Shoals, Alabama, with English producers.
With English producers, okay. I knew there was some English connection there.
And we had a deal that was like, they wouldn't give us cash up front, but it was like, spend whatever you want, and so we rented a hunting lodge,
so that's
and we had
a recipe for disaster.
Oh my God, we had a chef. It was.
What's the most thing from that point where you're most embarrassed about? That you're like,
I guess how fat I got just drinking beer and eating. We bought like a keg of pistachio nuts, and we would just sit around eating them, and I probably gained 25, 30 pounds. So you should have taken the pictures before,
Right.
But that, and then after we got the whole record made in Muscle Shoals, then we're like, oh, let's go to England to put on percussion and backup vocals.
Okay.
And we spent a month in England. We rented rooms in the Columbia Hotel, which is like the rock and roll hotel off Hyde Park.
Okay, so that's
all
the
these
royalty had stayed there.
All these musicians are coming through, and we're hanging out with our heroes, and got a $300 a week per diem.
You can name drop a few people who came through.
Oh, jeez, man, we hung out with like Elvis Costello, Nick Lowe, the guy from the Jam, Paul Weller.
Wow.
Ian Drury and the Blockheads. Luca Bloom.
Wow, so
the Kim Deal, I mean, it was just, and that's where the musicians stayed, and they had like a Nigerian bartender, and all the musicians were, it was very liberal what you could get away with in the bar late at night, and so it was insane, and it kind of blew our minds just to be around this.
Now, when all of that happened, the lineup, was it pretty stable at that point?
Yeah, at that point was me, Kevin, or me, Lenny, Kevin, and Dave, and we were getting paid, and we played. I mean, in 1996, we played like 300 shows.
Wow.
And that took a toll on us. I mean, because we were.
You got to take a toll on anybody.
Yeah, and we liked, we liked to be we were used to being in Little Rock, writing songs and playing them for our friends, and we're always creating. And so we kind of started doing the same thing when we were on the road. And by the time we toured out to L.A. and the record label people came to see us, we weren't playing any songs off the album. And our manager and A&R guy was like, play the songs off the album, and we're just like, we're done with that, And we blasted through this whole new album, which was basically the songs on Sangelique.
Yeah.
And they were like, what are you doing? And they're like, you need to be playing this record for like the next 3 years. And that whole idea of being like a corporate machine, and we were just like, we're not doing that.
I don't want to play the same record for 3 years.
Yeah, and we didn't understand how serious they were about us doing that. And so
you kind of blew them off and kept doing it anyway.
Yeah, we were like, who are these guys? So,
Did you have any did you guys on the record label come to any blows? Were there any like huge did they want something from you guys aside from that?
By the time we did this, we went up and we toured kind of back and forth all over the South and the Midwest and the East Coast, and then there was this whole right around the summer. I'll never forget, it was the summer because we were in Idaho eating chicken on the 4th of July. It was the worst chicken ever. Like, oh God, they don't know how to make chicken in Idaho. And we drove up to Seattle. We played Seattle, at the height of the grunge time, and then we went down the coast, San Francisco, L.A., San Diego, then back through Texas. But when we got to L.A., we were just so out of our minds, from just touring so long.
Road lag.
Yeah, and the people came out to see us, and they were like, get them some R&R, get them some, and they put us up in the Nikko, which is this Japanese hotel in Beverly Hills. So we went from Super 8, Super 8, Super 8, Super 8, Super 8, Super 8 to the Nikko. We're like, oh my God, we're like taking pictures of the room and the cars that pulled up in front,
and he's talking about a real camera, kids.
Yeah,
with film.
Yeah, film. Yeah, we had a Polaroid in the van, and I still have a lot. That was a big fun thing for us, just to use the Polaroid.
Yeah, bands should always have a Polaroid.
Yeah, but the people at the label were just like, they didn't understand, when after they saw us doing our thing and not knowing the songs and everything, I think they saw that they'd made a huge mistake. Yeah. So. And
then how did that dissolve out?
Well, we had our lawyer at the time. It was the same lawyer that Prince had. His name was Ken Krause. He was a Nashville lawyer.
On paper, that sounds like the best you can get.
He was good, and he saved us, man. Because we always heard these horror stories of being put in suspension, which is basically. Right. You can't record for us, and you can't record for anyone else.
Right, or you could lose your name.
Yeah, and so we were really nervous because we wanted out. We were, and we were getting all these. We knew there were a lot of other people that we might could have picked up a deal with, but he got us out of it basically, and we didn't have to pay. It's amazing how much money they gave us and then let us out of it. We were just kind of like,
and it was probably just. Pocket change to those guys.
Yeah,
that's very Sex Pistols thing.
Well, but it also made us damaged goods, because it was like nobody.
Reputation.
Yeah, and it was kind of like, okay, well, these guys took the big man at Universal for all this money and they didn't really do anything. Why would anybody else help us?
Right.
So,
right.
And so we made 15 more independent records that to this day. No more than probably 1,000 people have heard or something. So.
Now, I would say my favorite record is Sangelique. I think partially because of the songs. There's just some incredibly catchy and great songs on there. But that introduced Colin Brooks to the band. Now, I'd seen him with 2 Minutes Hate just killing it for a while.
He's a powerhouse,
So when I was like, Colin Brooks, okay, well, let's see what this sounds like. I think a lot of people were very curious. And again, nothing against Dave, because Dave's an amazing drummer, but they're completely night and day.
Different, yeah.
You guys really had very different drummers. Colin was a little bit more of the like Dave Grohl's, where they're very heavy hitter and very much, very heavy footed. So
gets a rim shot.
How did that change?
Man, it was Dave, playing with Dave is like, I guess like driving a pickup truck. It was like it felt right, and then getting Colin was like, oh my God, we got a brand new Corvette, you know, and we can do anything. And then with the, you know, we kind of took it up a notch with the you know, the kind of a punkier thing, you know.
Yeah.
But Colin, you know, certain songs that had like a train beat, what I want to call them, like that song Too Much Elbow Room. Mm-hmm. It's amazing. I have a version of it that Dave played on, and I have a version that Colin played on, and it's almost indistinguishable on a song like that.
Wow.
But then on a song like, you know, Fake Pop Minefield or Don't Move to the City or something like that, Colin was just like, we were just trying to keep up with it, man. You know, he's just like a machine, you know. And it really, you know, we had been playing so much that it was just like a logical, you know, next step. So,
all right. Well, what else have you got for us?
Well, speaking of, you know, I'm thinking about the Colin years now.
Okay.
I get in stories in my head, but go.
Well, no, if you've got a good Colin story.
Well, this is
not
one
to
of
single him out.
We talked earlier a little bit about, you know, misremembering, and like some people
right.
remember it one way or another, and
yeah, you can disclaim this as being this is the way you remember it happening.
We played at CBGB, you know, every time we would play there, there was always, you know, celebrity sightings, and you know, and my brother and I had, in between Colin joining and Dave leaving, after my brother and I got through with that crazy 1996 tour, we came home and we were just so saturated, and we made that Magic Crop Dusters record.
Oh, yeah. Is that the first one?
Yeah, the first one, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's me playing bass and my brother drumming, and
yeah.
David Jukes and Michael Jukes filling, you know, David's doing the singing and guitar, and Michael's playing keyboards and singing. But we made that record, and then when we went, right after that, Colin joined up, and I mean, the end of 96, start of 97 was just chaos in so many ways. I can't even remember how it all went down, but somehow we ended up playing Ho Hum in New York with Colin in the band. And I remember we had a stack of Magic Crop Duster CDs with us too, and we were selling, you know, if we never even got the merchandise like out of the van, you know. It was like, and we were like, oh, yeah, I was like, oh yeah, we got CDs, you know.
Yeah.
It was, you know. But somehow I go up to the bar, and Evan Dando from the Lemonheads,
yeah,
he's sitting there, and he's got there's this rap band of girls that I can't remember or young women, sorry, that were with him, and Luscious Jackson.
Oh, Luscious
so,
Jackson.
Yeah,
okay,
they were like
sure.
the band of the moment. It's Luscious Jackson and Evan Dando sitting at the bar, and I look down, and this is when Colin was in the band, and this was me being a little like, how long does he think he's been in this band? Colin had taken it upon himself to give Evan Dando a Magic Crop Duster CD.
Wow.
And I'm kind of like, I didn't know he gave it to him. I saw it there, and I was like, what? Where'd you get that? You know, I thought they were stashed in the van.
Yeah.
And Dando goes, the drummer gave it to me, and I was like, he gave it to you? And I was like,
that's how we make our gas money,
and
man.
I was like, and I took it back from him, you know, which is really a bad move. Wow. I should have just let him have it, but I was like, that's $5, man, you know, which was a really, you know, but yeah, that was.
Would you do that differently? Would you let him keep the CD?
I would let him keep it now. Yeah.
Do you think has David Jukes heard this story?
I don't know. David is the keeper of many stories, but yeah, I don't know if David's heard that story or not. Yeah.
Do you think? I mean, he doesn't. I don't know him that well. I don't know that anybody knows him that well. But he doesn't appear to be the kind of person who would get mad if he found out that someone stopped Evan Dando from getting his CD. He'd be like, "Wait, what?"
Yeah, David is, man. He's a.
I hope to get him on the show.
Good luck. Yeah.
Good luck is what I've heard from everyone. David, if you're watching, and I know you're not, but if you know David Jukes, perhaps you can convince him to come on. Cause
David is the keeper. David would be the best on this because he has the best stories, and he remembers them in a detail. I could tell one on him.
Give us a David Jukes story, because then if he comes on, maybe he'll give us a Rod Bryan story.
Oh, God, yeah, he will. I know he will. And so he played. I guess he played in Ho Hum for like 2 weeks, and that's all he could.
Interesting. Okay,
and that's like all he could take it, you know. But it was after Kirby left.
Okay, so he thought.
Let's say like Colin left, and then Kirby left like right after, or no wait. Kevin left
close.
first, and then Kirby left like 2 weeks after or something. But so Dave, it was me, Colin, Lenny, and Dave was probably one of the best lineups of Ho Hum ever.
I saw that. Dave came back.
Yeah, we even got a photo session of it somewhere with me. Yeah, and we played like 2 weeks together.
Did he wear the apron?
Well, man, he had gotten so into just being at home, doing his home, and I totally picked this up later when I tried to go on tour with people after I had stopped touring for a while. Mm-hmm. You get these rituals of being at home, when you're on the road. You got disposable clothes. And you might have a toothbrush. It's just wear the same clothes for a week. Man, we were to pick him up to go on tour, and man, he had like a laundry bag full of food, and and he had he had like a whole bunch of stuff.
He was taking his routine with him.
Yeah, I could tell he so didn't want to go. And we were just like, we're gonna take this guy. And then so anyway, we went and did this awful tour, nobody should have ever booked, and we were playing things like we were covering Band on the Run like note for note, and it was great to me, But anyway, we played like up to New York. That was my standard thing: is book a 2-week tour to New York and back, and play, and then go back via like Minneapolis and Chicago and Omaha. Play all these. We play the Ranch Bowl, playing all in Iowa. So we do this madhouse 2-week tour, and I'm charged up. I think it's great, and I book another tour. So the next tour is about to start, and we go to pick Jukes up. And I'm like, and Jukes tells this. The reason I can tell it on him because I've heard him tell it on other people too. I'm like looking in. I'm beating on the door, and he's not coming to the door. And I'm like, I know you're in there. And I just know this from hearing him tell it so many times. I said, I can see your shoes like behind the couch, I'm like, open the door.
Literally hiding from you.
So he won't come out. And then we're like, you know what? We're fine we're a 3-piece. We're going to New York. Everything's good, And I think it was like practice the day before we were leaving. We were having like a last check before we go on tour. So, and we had already the Baileys were big at this time.
Yeah.
And so we're way into the Baileys. And we kind of are sensing that Colin's going to bail too. So we got our eye, our next date we're going to cheat with is
Brad
Brown. And we love the Baileys. We don't want to stab the Baileys in the back. But we're also like, a tour is a tour, business is business, So anyways, after Jukes doesn't come out of the house, we're like, well, let's, with great trepidation, let's go find Colin. The two big thuggish Bryan boys are going to look for their band and can't find Colin anywhere. Finally, I think Lenny gets the word, or Colin tells him something. He's like, man, I can't do this anymore. And they're totally, what they're doing is being sane human beings.
Right.
We're not going to put ourselves through what you just did to us again.
Yeah,
and I'm like, you must, this is what we're doing.
This is what we do.
Yeah, it's what we do. And so anyway, Colin's not coming. So all of a sudden, the next day, we're supposed to be playing live on television in Memphis on like the morning show with like old ladies interviewing us at 6:00 in the morning.
Sure.
And we don't have a band. And there's a 2-week tour to. It's the same. I think it was the New York thing again. Maybe with Jukes and Colin, we went Midwest, and now we're going to go East Coast.
Okay.
And this is in this time when we're trying to get a label. We got a record we want to get done. So we basically get Brad practice all nighter. Don't go to sleep. Drive to Memphis. Brad plays the show with us live on TV, and it's so Brad's style of drumming so different from Colin's.
Yeah.
And I had locked in with Colin. We're like, and so it was an incredibly frustrating thing, but we did it, and then we did that tour, and it was just absolute chaos. That was somewhere between Angelique and Massacre. So.
Now, did Brad play the Baileys drum kit? Because the reason I ask is the Baileys took Brad from, if I'm getting my facts straight, the Baileys took Brad, who had a huge drum kit, and kind of forced him to go to minimalize. And because the Baileys lineup, his drum set was just, I think it was a 3-piece.
Yeah.
It was really small. He had a really tiny kit.
That's a good question. I think,
and the Baileys music, as again, it was he played very. I mean, I don't want to say Tommy Ramone, but it was all fairly straightforward. The opposite.
I love
the opposite of ho hum.
Yeah.
So, That had to be a crazy change.
I think I think the drums he played were like, I don't think he played his drums for some reason. I think he played a set that we had. I can't remember.
That makes sense. That would make sense.
But he did it well, and I don't think we ever used a metronome until Brad got in the band. So we kind of entered our Beatles phase because he did play. Brad has like a hitch when he plays that's different than Dave or Colin. It's so nuanced. And bass players, you're a bass player, but a bass player knows their drummer better than anybody.
Oh yeah,
and it's just like, man, if it's not working, it's all over, And I was very attached to the style that Dave played. But then Colin was like this. But then moving from Colin to Brad was a very nuanced thing because Brad has a very unique style that ended up kind of becoming our signature sound.
I was going to say, after Brad came on, it almost sounded like the band almost adapted to him.
Yeah.
Because the songs did sound different, but they still sounded like ho-hum songs. They still sounded right, but it was like a new era of songs.
I think that's, Brad adapting this style he has, which is kind of a push and pull, but he's getting in between the groove of the metronome. And then I'm sitting back going, I got to get in there somewhere. And that's kind of what made like Massacre, that album, I mean, to this day. But then, we were talking about our kids getting into music. I was playing my kids every now and then. I go, you ever heard this song? And I was listening to the radio, and I heard some very 90s sounding song. And then I was like, have you ever heard Partying by Ho Hum off of Saints League? I explained to them like what the song was about. And the whole misremembering thing, I was like, I had convinced myself in my mind that I had sampled, I used a sampler for the first time in Ho Hum on that record. And there's like little weirdnesses on it. And
I've got nightmare memories of your sampler.
Yeah, I bet.
From one very specific day.
Oh my God. Was it in the studio?
It was in the studio.
Okay, you tell a story. Tell this story. Yeah.
Well, all right, so I was living at a house that was a recording studio, and the quality at that point in the studio had gotten so good that you could easily come in and cut something more than a demo or more than just kind of some scratch stuff. And I remember you guys showing up. I think it was just the two of you, and you had that sampler. And you guys said, okay, so, and this is what I remember. I remember hearing the phrase, and I could be remembering it wrong, but I remember hearing the phrase, okay, so I'm going to lay down a snare track for like 17 minutes. I'm just record 17 minutes of this snare track or something. Like, okay. And it was all the whole song was based around a sample. Hey ya 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 hey. I heard that for 10 hours straight, something like that.
Yeah.
Like 10 hours of nothing. Hey ya hey ya. And I would go to sleep and I'm dreaming. Get up the next day. Now we're mixing it. Hey, oh no.
Yeah.
That's what I remember. I will say the song came out great in the end, but when everything was being tracked to that sample.
Yeah, that was the metronome.
That was the metronome. It was all tracked to the sample.
I'll never forget because I went in. I did the high on the sample because I went in the bathroom. Whose house was that? I mean, do you want to say their name?
Yeah. It was. Yeah.
And so but I remember I went in the bathroom with the little sampler and the microphone. I went hi.
Yeah.
And then I had to cut it down. I was like, that's it. Lay it down to that,
Just loop that, put that down for 25 minutes, and we'll record whatever we want.
Well, a lot of people don't know that Massacre. I mean, I had gotten to this kind of like Thelonious Monk meets Alan Lomax and Timothy Leary. After we get off tour, I'm like this shell shock, Vietnam.
You're going in every direction at once.
Yeah. And I come home and I have this Tascam 4-track recorder. And the start of Massacre with the locust, I just went on this walk one day with a really nice mic and that 4-track, and I went out and I recorded the locust, and then I walked all around, and I basically, the duration of Massacre, that track runs under the whole thing. We kind of just bring it up sometimes.
Oh wow!
Like there's another part like after I got back from the walk, I went in my apartment, and my wife at the time, I don't know if we were married then or not, but anyway, she was in the shower, and I went in and I just go, speak to the world. And she opened the shower and she went, I don't know what to say. And that's like on the record too. And that's all from that one recording. And we put that under, and we would listen to it while we were tracking the
whole
record.
Feel of the record was based around an odd,
Yeah, it was a weird time in my life.
Vibe.
Yeah. So.
Okay, so let's wrap up with one more story. I only know one detail, so you're gonna have to fill in all the details because this is just a rumor story, something I heard in passing. I was told by an anonymous source that I need to ask about a story involving a pair of underwear being completely ripped off in one fell swoop without removing pants.
Yeah.
So what's that about?
Okay, that was and that story has gone around a few times, and I'm sure it's probably not getting told exactly right, but this is my remembrance of it.
All right.
We usually played the Hurricane in Kansas City.
Okay.
And for some reason, Kansas City, the Hurricanes double booked or something, and we were playing through there, and we had to play Davies Uptown Rambler, which is still there. It's kind of like the Vinos of Kansas City without a bar, without a pizza. It's just a bar, and it's just it's like the Antenna kind of was,
Yeah, so
just
like 300 seater, 350.
Man,
maybe not even that.
I can't even remember, but I know that it was one of those things where they don't care if you play there or not. Just kind of like it's hard to get a gig there, and they don't promote it at all. And it's like it's a room, you show up, and we weren't exactly the punkest. We were more like we had a very punk rock ethos, but our music was kind of more poppy, and we weren't really. We weren't considered punks.
Alternative rock.
Yeah.
Alternative pop. Yeah.
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 So
it's not your fault that the songs were super catchy.
Yeah. What can you do?
What can you do?
But we show up to play there, and it's for the door. And I remember I was always the guy that was most concerned with, we're going to get enough gas money and food money, get to the next town. And
so that's all on you.
Yeah. So
you have to be the asshole.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
And that was my job most of the time. So I'm standing there, playing bass, watching, and the guy wasn't taking money from people. And so, and there's more, more, and at the end of the night, maybe 15, 20 people came through there, but I'm thinking, well, hey, in my mind, I'm thinking if everybody paid the $5 cover, we got $100 to go. And at the end of the night, the guy was like, no, he said, nobody paid, man. I was like, what about these people here? The guy's like basically telling me there's no money whatsoever. And so he and I don't remember all the details, but basically it got down to me and him almost coming to fisticuffs. And then as whoever, I don't know if it was Jason White I remember it seemed like some friend of ours who wasn't in the band was with us. They're basically dragging me to the, to the van. And as I'm just, somehow I think I'd had the same clothes on for quite some time. And I think these might have been some really old ratty tatty underwear. I don't think I could have done it with a brand new pair of underwear, but I somehow fished them out of and just snatched them out and threw my dirty underwear in the guy's face. That's
spur of the moment.
And this could all be a figment of my imagination. I mean, but I do remember something like that happened because we also drank quite a lot of beer back in those days, and that probably happened that night too. So, but yeah.
So just threw him at the guy. All right.
Yeah, and it was just because he was the guy that was our meal ticket for the next thing, and he did not do his job.
Yeah, he was responsible. You couldn't do it. You're on stage. He's got to get the money.
Yeah.
He gets no money. You get no money.
Yeah. I remember it being painful.
That does sound painful.
Yeah.
All right.
I needed the pain to get me to the next time.
Was that the worst time that you guys got ripped off? Because
no.
Any musician watching can tell you that you almost get ripped off as many, sometimes even more than you actually get paid.
We could do it,
especially on the road. A lot of clubs take advantage of touring bands. They know they're never going to see you again. They know that you're completely at their mercy. What was the worst time you got taken advantage of?
Man,
Because surely $100. Surely you can beat $100.
We could probably we could do a 2-hour show on. I can
just getting ripped off.
I can remember one night where we made a haul, and our guarantee, it was like a New Year's Eve gig or something, and we made the guarantee was $2,500 or something.
Wow!
But when I was sitting there counting it out, and the guy knew I was smashed because it was New Year's Eve when we were drinking pretty heavily back then, and so he's like, count it. And so I'm like, and he gives it to me in like all increments of money. I'm like, and so I go, man, I count, I go, you were 300 short. I go, that's only 2,200. He's like, you sure? I'm like, yeah, he goes, you positive? And I was like, I go, yeah. And he slides 300 out, and he goes, you're pretty good, man. He goes, I thought you were drunker than that, He was trying to do
literally trying to rip you off.
That was one, but then there were other nights where they would not give us the money. Like we were in Ruston, Louisiana. I remember at I think it was the Sundowner, and I had a signed contract for like a $300 guarantee or something, and we played like 4 hours. We played every song we know. When we just the whole idea is keep these college kids in here as long as we can till they drink every drop of beer in this whole parish, and that's what we did. And then they're not giving us money, and they send some beautiful young bartender up to break the news to me that we don't have quite enough money. And so
what is their definition of quite enough?
Well, it was, I want to say it was, we had it was a $300 guarantee, and they were trying to give me, $250 or something. So in my mind, I'm going to do $50 worth of damage and then some to something. And I think I went and started, tearing the stall down in the bathroom or something.
No.
I don't know. It was.
Oh, come on.
There were always
for everyone.
There were always easier ways to do things than I did. But I'm thinking, I'm tired. I'm drunk. I want to leave.
Yeah.
Give me my money. I can't take the show back from you.
That's right. That's right.
If it was plumbing, I would go take the pipes. But we've given these people an experience that they're going to have for the rest of their lives, and we can't get our money. So. Occasionally things like that happened, but I apologize to everyone, and I'll deny all this in a court of law.
All right, now I'm sure every band's got one of these. So, worst breakdown story.
Ooh, that one's pretty easy.
Again, we could do 2 hours probably on breakdowns, but
this one is super easy. So, when we were with Universal, when we had that open contract, before then, we had basically ruined the vans of every person we know and cars and everything
borrowing
else.
them and treating them like crap.
Oh, God. Yeah. So they went and bought us a brand new Dodge, long tail van.
Yeah, like a 15-passenger or like something like that.
And it was brand new. We just got, we did, I want to say when this day happened, it might have had 2,500 miles on it. We'd driven it around a little bit. But we were going to open for it was Wilco's first tour, 1995, the I Must Be High show tour. It was them and the Jayhawks, and the Jayhawks were the headliner. Wilco was in the middle, and we were first. And it was in Nashville on the riverfront, free show, big deal. You know? So we're driving to it, and I remember I was driving, and we're somewhere between here and Memphis, and I feel something just kind of wobble that was just kind of weird. And I immediately pulled over. If I hadn't pulled over right when I did, So I pull over, we get out and we look. The right front tire is completely like this. It's pulled away. And we ended up, what happened.
So like was it broken from the axle? Or?
Yeah, what had happened, it ended up being, there were a lot of lawsuits filed around it it was after Jeep had been acquired by Dodge, and it was happening with a lot of Jeeps. Okay. There was some factory where some guy was forgetting to pack the grease in the and they got these cars coming out the line with like no grease, and if I remember right, it was like always like the front right, and there were like a couple of
the front right grease guy just wasn't doing his job.
A couple of really fatal accident. If I had driven another little bit, we could have been all dead.
Wow.
But anyway,
so what do you do in that situation? You can't drive it, but
this record guy, we were on the way to this gig of our lives, and so we got a wrecker to come he lifts up the van and we ride with the guy in the wrecker all the way to Nashville. And so we pull up to open for Wilco and the Jayhawks.
You got all your gear. It's in the van.
We got Bernie Ledden sitting in with us from the freaking Eagles and Flying Burrito Brothers. So it's like this high pressure thing. And they hauled us all the way there to the gig, and we got out. And then we ended up, our poor manager, God rest his soul, he ended up staying in Nashville for 3 extra days and we got a U-Haul and kept the tour going. And
right, so he stayed there with the van.
Yeah, just trying to get all the the details worked out as to what was wrong with it. And boy, that's a whole another nightmare that I won't tell you about because of certain. Yeah, I'm not even going to go there because there's certain people still in business who would not want me to tell.
Well,
this
we
story,
don't want to ruin any businesses.
No businesses ruined. Yeah.
Okay, well, Rod, this has been fantastic. You've told some fantastic tales.
Thank you.
Hopefully, nobody's all butthurt. I think you did okay. I think I don't think anybody will be. I don't think anybody's going to be sad or disappointed that you told a story about them. I think you're pretty well covered.
Hopefully, we got it all. Done.
Yeah, hopefully all the facts are fairly right. We're close enough.
Yeah, we could do this all the time.
Well, maybe you'll come back for season 2.
Yeah.
Tune in next week, guys. We've got Holly Rocket from the Cunts, and she's going to be here. And now, if you're not familiar with the Cunts, they are one of the craziest. I can't say the craziest, but they're one of the craziest and one of my favorite punk bands in our local area. I think the craziest would be like the STDs or maybe the Loiterers or something where they're cutting themselves and hitting each other and bleeding. There's no blood in the Cunt show, I don't think, normally. So
I never did much of that stuff.
So I just have to immediately assume that we'll hear some fantastic stories next week as well. How could we not? So thank you guys for watching. Thanks for listening. And we will see you guys next week. Bye.